Reading through the Bible in 1 year, August 23rd, 1 Samuel 15, Romans 13, Jeremiah 52, and Psalm 31. Samuel told Saul, Yahweh sent me to anoint you as king over his people Israel. Now, listen to the words of Yahweh. This is what the Lord of armies says. I witnessed what the Amalekites did to Israel when they opposed them, along with the way as they were coming out of Egypt. Starting over, that was horrible. I witnessed what the Amalekites did to the Israelites when they opposed them along the way as they were coming out of Egypt. Now, go and attack the Amalekites and completely destroy everything they have. Do not spare them. Kill men, women, infants, nursing babies, oxen and sheep, camels and donkeys. Then Saul summoned the troops and counted them at Telaim. 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men from Judah. Saul came to the city of Amalek and set up an ambush in the wadi. He warned the Kenites, since you showed kindness to all the Israelites when they came out of Egypt, go on and leave. Get away from the Amalekites, or I'll sweep you away with them. So the Kenites withdrew from the Amalekites. Then Saul struck down the Amalekites from the Havilah all the way to Shur, which is next to Agag. All right, just totally lost my spot. Let me see here. I'll go back to the end of 6. So the Kenites withdrew from the Amalekites. Then Saul struck down the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is next to Egypt. He captured Agag of Amalek alive, but he completely destroyed all the rest of the people with the sword. Saul and the troops spared Agag and the best of the sheep, goats, cattle, and choice animals, as well as the young rams and the best of everything else. They were not willing to destroy them, but they did destroy all the worthless and unwanted things. Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel. I regret that I have made Saul king, for he has turned away from following me and has not carried out my instructions. So Saul became angry and cried out to the Lord all night. Let me see. There's a note later on God saying that he will regret. I'm going to read the note on this here because this one's important, because people get confused and they say, what does God mean that he regrets something? Did God make a mistake? Let's read the note. Here, as in Genesis 6:6, where God says that he regretted making man on the earth, the Lord, quote, regrets, unquote, a decision. This means that God feels genuine sorrow when contemplating Saul's sin. But it does not mean that God thinks his decision to make Saul king was a mistake in the overall course of his plans for history. We'll get to more of this at the end of this book in verse 29. Verse 12. Early in the morning, Samuel got up to confront Saul, but it was reported to Samuel, Saul went to Carmel, where he set up a monument for himself. Then he turned around and went to Gilgal. When Samuel came to him, Saul said, May the Lord bless you. I have carried out the Lord's instructions. Samuel replied, Then what is this? What's the sound of sheep, goats, and cattle that I hear? Saul answered, The troops brought them from the Amalekites and spared the best of the sheep, goats, and cattle in order to sacrifice to the Lord your God. But the rest, the garbage ones, we destroyed. You said, we're going to have a great sacrifice to God with these. No, that wasn't the command. The command was to destroy all of them. Stop, exclaimed Samuel. Let me tell you what the Lord, Yahweh, said to me last night. Tell me, he replied. Samuel continued, although you once considered yourself unimportant, haven't you become the leader of the tribes of Israel? Yahweh anointed you king over Israel and sent you on a mission. and said, "Go and completely destroy the sinful Amalekites. Fight against them until you have annihilated them." So why didn't you obey Yahweh? Why did you rush on the plunder and do what was evil in the sight of the Lord? "But I did obey Yahweh," Saul answered. "I went on the mission the Lord gave me. I brought back King Agag of Amalek, and I completely destroyed the Amalekites. The troops took sheep and goats and cattle from the plunder, the best of what was set apart for destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God at Gilgal." Then Samuel said, "Does the Lord take pleasure in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? Look, to obey is better than sacrifice. To pay attention is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and defiance is like wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." Saul answered Samuel, I have sinned. I have transgressed the Lord's command and your words because I was afraid of the people and obeyed them. This is the second time he's done this now. Now, therefore, please forgive my sin and return with me so I can worship the Lord. Samuel replied to Saul, "I will not return with you because you rejected the word of Yahweh. Yahweh has rejected you from being king over Israel." When Samuel turned to go, Saul grabbed the corner of his robe and it tore. Samuel said to him, "The Lord has torn the kingship of Israel away from you today and has given it to your neighbor who was better than you. Furthermore, the Eternal One of Israel does not lie or change his mind. He is not a man who changes his mind." In other translations, this text for "change his mind" is also the same one for regret. Yet we just saw that the Lord says that he regretted making him king. Let's read the note here now. We're going to stay in the ESV Study Bible because it's, where we pulled the first notes from. The term regret, or in this case, changing his mind, poses a difficulty since verse 11 and verse 35, later on down here, say that God did regret making Saul king, while here Samuel denies that God will ever lie or have regret. The term for, quote, have regret, unquote, can be translated as relent or change one's mind, or have pity or compassion, as well as be sorry or have regret. Thus, the term used in 1 Samuel 15, verse 11, which we've already read, and 35, which is coming up here in a minute, describes God's own feeling of sorrow or regret that Saul turned out as he did, and does not even address the question whether God knew it beforehand. While in verse 29 here, quote, God will not regret or change his mind concerning a decision he has made, concerning a decision once he has made it. So once God says, it's the CEO mentality. Once you put something in place, it stays there. That's what's being said. God put him in place in this role. He regrettably went to serve himself. And I say serving himself because sure, he's serving as king for the people. But what is he really doing? He's afraid of the people. He's just going along with whatever they say. Beforehand, when he went up and offered the sacrifice to God, which is not his role or responsibility to do, he sinned against God greatly in that thing. But why did he do it? Because the people were deserting from him. So he was afraid of losing the will of the people. And then he went ahead and sacrificed to God. And here the same thing happened. The people were excited, right? They were seeing all of these great cattle and things that are there. There's the king of Agag, right? A very powerful man, well respected by everybody. We'll take them, but we'll destroy everything else. That's surely good enough for God. No, God said, wipe everything out. Excuse me. All of them. And so here we are. Here we see the regret of God in that he knew he was going to do these things. God knew that Saul was going to fall spectacularly in this way, and it keeps getting worse as we go. God knew this was going to happen, but he regrets having to watch it take place. Knowing the struggle the people of Israel are going to have with him as their king. Knowing the fact that he's going to lead them into some terrible disasters. And this is going to get real bad. He's going to make basically Israel a laughingstock to all the nations around them because of the way that he's going to act. God regrets it, but it is necessary for David to be king. Again, verse 29, furthermore, the Eternal One of Israel does not lie or change his mind, regret. For he is not like a man who changes his mind. Saul said, I have sinned. Please, honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel. Come back with me so I can bow and worship to the Lord your God. Once again, he's concerned not about what he should be concerned about, at least not to the right level. He's concerned about what? He's concerned about the fact that people will look at him poorly. They will assume he has done something wrong, which he has. They're going to assume he did something wrong, and he doesn't want to lose face in the sight of the people. So then Samuel went back, following Saul, and Saul bowed down to the Lord. Samuel said, bring me King Agag of Amalek. And Agag came to him trembling, for he thought, certainly the bitterness of death has come. Samuel declared, as your sword has made women childless, so your mother will be childless among women. Then he, the prophet, hacked Agag to pieces before the Lord at Gilgal. Saul couldn't do what was necessary, so he did it himself. Samuel went to Ramah, and Saul went up to his home in Gibeah of Saul. Even to the day of his death, Samuel never saw Saul again. Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord regretted he had made Saul king over Israel. It's that same line we saw before, where God is regretting the struggle he's going to see the people go through, where God feels bad over what's about to take place, but he knows that it's necessary. Let's move on to Romans 13 now. Paul continues, let everyone submit to the governing authorities, since there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are instituted by God. So then, the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and the one who opposes it will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Do you want to remain unafraid of the one in authority? Do what is good, and you will have its approval. For it is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, well, be afraid, because it does not carry the sword for no reason. For it is God's servant, an avenger that brings wrath on the one who does wrong. Therefore you must submit, not only because of wrath, but also because of your conscience. And for this reason you pay taxes, since the authorities are God's servants, continually attending to these tasks. Pay your obligations to everyone. Taxes to whom taxes are owed, tolls to whom tolls are owed, and respect to those you owe respect, and honor to those you owe honor. Do not owe anyone anything, except to love one another. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. These commandments: do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet. Any other commandment sorry, and any other commandment are summed up by this commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law. Besides this, since you know that the time, rather, since you know the time, it is already the hour for you to wake up from sleep, because now salvation is nearer than when we first believed. The night is nearly over. The day is near. So let us discard the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us walk with decency, as in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual impurity and promiscuity, not in quarreling and jealousy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Let's move on now to Jeremiah 52, the end of this book. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king. He reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. Zedekiah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Jehoiakim had done. Because of the Lord's anger, it came to the point in Jerusalem and Judah that he finally banished them from his presence. Then Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon after he had made him a ruler, after he had allowed him to continue ruling. He had actually taken the original king out and put Zedekiah up in his place. In the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon advanced against Jerusalem with his entire army. They laid siege to the city and built a siege wall against it all around. The city was under siege until Zedekiah's 11th year. By the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was so severe in that city that the common people had no food. Then the city was broken into, and all the warriors fled. They left the city at night by way of the city gate between the two walls near the king's garden, though the Chaldeans surrounded the city. They made their way along the route to the Arabah. The Chaldean army pursued the king and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. Zedekiah's entire army left him and scattered. The Chaldeans seized the king and brought him to the king of Babylon at Riblah in the land of Hamath, and he passed sentence on him. At Riblah, the king of Babylon slaughtered Zedekiah's sons before his eyes, and he also slaughtered the Judean commanders. Then he plucked out the eyes of Zedekiah, blinding him. So the last thing he saw was the death of those who were relying on him. And he bound him with bronze chains. And the king of Babylon brought Zedekiah to Babylon, where he kept him in custody until his dying day. On the 10th day of the 5th month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, entered Jerusalem as the representative of the king of Babylon. He burned the Lord's temple, the king's palace, all the houses of Jerusalem. He burned down all the great houses. The whole Chaldean army, with the captain of the guards, tore down all the walls surrounding Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, deported some of the poorest of the people, as well as the rest of the people who had remained in the city, the deserters who had defected to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the craftsmen. But Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, left some of the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and farmers. Now the Chaldeans broke into pieces the bronze pillars for the Lord's temple, and the water carts and the bronze basins that were in the Lord's temple, and they carried all the bronze to Babylon. They also took the pots, shovels, wick trimmers, sprinkling basins, dishes, and all the bronze articles used in temple service. The captain of the guards also took away all the bowls, fire pans, sprinkling basins, pots. This is a different line. Pots, lampstands, pans, and drink offering bowls, whatever was of gold or silver. As for the 2 pillars and the 1 basin, This is what's called the sea, with the 12 bronze oxen under it, and the water carts that King Solomon had made for the Lord's temple. The weight of all the bronze of these articles was beyond measure. One pillar was 27 feet tall and had a circumference of 18 feet. It was hollow, 4 fingers thick. It had a bronze capital on top of it. One capital, encircled by bronze grating and pomegranates, stood 7.5 feet high. The second pillar was the same, with pomegranates. Each capital had 96 pomegranates all around it. All the pomegranates around the grating numbered 100. The captain of the guards also took away Sariah, the chief priest, Zephaniah the priest of the second rank, and the 3 doorkeepers. From the city he took a court official who had been appointed over the warriors, 7 trusted royal aides found in the city, the secretary of the commander of the army, who enlisted the people of the land for military duty, and 60 men from the common people, who were found within the city. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, took them, and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. The king of Babylon put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. So Judah went into exile from its land. These are the people Nebuchadnezzar deported. In the 7th year, 3,023 Jews, and in his 18th year, 832 people from Jerusalem. In Nebuchadnezzar's 23rd year, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, deported 745 Jews. Altogether, 4,600 people were deported. On the 25th day of the 12th month of the 37th year of the exile of Judah's king Jehoiachin, King Evil-Merodach of Babylon, in the 1st year of his reign, pardoned King Jehoiachin of Judah and released him from prison. He spoke kindly to him and set his throne above the thrones of the kings who were with him in Babylon. So Jehoiachin changed his prison clothes and dined regularly in the presence of the king of Babylon for the rest of his life. As for his allowance, a regular allowance was given to him by the king of Babylon, a portion for each day until the day of his death for the rest of his life. Let's go ahead and go to Psalm 31 now. Lord, I seek refuge in you. Let me never be disgraced. Save me by your righteousness. Listen closely to me. Rescue me quickly. Be a rock of refuge for me, a mountain fortress to save me. For you are my rock and my fortress. You lead and guide me for your name's sake. You will free me from the net that is secretly set for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hand I entrust my spirit. You have redeemed me, Lord, God of truth. I hate those who are devoted to worthless idols, but I trust in the Lord. I will rejoice and be glad in your faithful love, because you have seen my affliction. You know the troubles of my soul, and have not handed me over to the enemy. You have set my feet in a spacious place. Be gracious to me, Lord, because I am in distress. My eyes are worn out from frustration, my whole being as well. Indeed, my life is consumed with grief, in my years with groaning. My strength has failed because of my iniquity, and my bones waste away. I am ridiculed by all my adversaries, and even by my neighbors. I am dreaded by my acquaintances. Those who see me in the street run from me. I am forgotten, gone from memory, like a dead person, like broken pottery. I have heard the gossip of many. Terror is on every side. When they conspired against me, they plotted to take my life. But I trust in you, Lord. I say, you are my God. The course of my life is in your power. Rescue me from the power of my enemies and from my persecutors. Make your face shine on your servant. Save me by your faithful love. Lord, do not let me be disgraced when I call on you. Let the wicked be disgraced. Let them be quiet in Sheol. Let lying lips that arrogantly speak against the righteous, in proud contempt be silenced. How great is your goodness, which you have stored up for those who fear you. In the presence of everyone, you have acted for those who take refuge in you. You hide them in the protection of your presence. You conceal them in a shelter from human schemes, from quarrelsome tongues. Blessed be the Lord, for he has wondrously shown his faithful love to me in a city under siege. In my alarm I said, I am cut off from your sight. But you heard the sound of my pleading when I cried to you for help. Love the Lord, all his faithful ones. The Lord protects the loyal, but fully repays the arrogant. Be strong, and let your heart be courageous, all you who put your hope in the Lord. Make sure that's all the notes, and it is. All right. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.